The alarm on the bridge of the Starship Defender screamed like a dying animal. Captain Lee Minho jumped from his chair, his coffee spilling across the metal floor. The red warning lights painted everything in blood-colored shadows. What's happening? Minho shouted over the noise. His tech specialist, Park Ji-woo, was already at his station, fingers dancing across the glowing controls. His face was pale with worry. Captain, we just lost contact with the research ship New Dawn. Their emergency beacon went silent 30 seconds ago. Minho felt ice in his stomach. The New Dawn was exploring the Void Sector, a dark region of space where ships went missing. No one knew why. Ships would enter the area and simply vanish, leaving no trace behind. Where exactly did we lose them? Minho asked, walking to the main screen. Right at the edge of the Void Sector, Ji-woo replied, pulling up a star map. A small red dot blinked where the New Dawn should have been. Their last message was routine. Everything normal? Then ... nothing. Sora, the ship's combat medic, looked up from her medical station. She was young but experienced, having served on 3 different ships before joining Minho's crew. Captain, my sensors show no life signs in that area. But the strange thing is, I'm not detecting any debris either. Minho stared at the empty space on the screen. In his 10 years as a captain, he had seen many ship disasters. There was always something left behind, pieces of metal, escape pods, or at least some kind of energy signature. But this, like the ship had simply stopped existing. Prepare for jump to those coordinates, Minho ordered. Full emergency response protocol? Ji-woo hesitated. Captain, you know what they say about the Void Sector? 17 ships have vanished there in the last 5 years. Maybe we should call for backup first. There might be survivors, Minho said firmly. We're not leaving them to die while we wait for help. The jump through space felt different this time. Usually the transition was smooth, like sliding through water. But as they approached the Void Sector, the ship shuddered and groaned. The lights flickered and strange shadows seemed to move in the corners of their vision. Jump complete, Ji-woo announced, but his voice was shaky, scanning for the New Dawn. The main screen lit up, and there it was. The research ship floated in the darkness like a ghost. Its lights were still on, and it looked completely normal. Too normal. I'm detecting full power, Sora reported, checking her instruments. Life support is running. Engines are online. But ... OBU. She paused, frowning. No life signs at all. Minho studied the ship through the view screen. Something was wrong. The New Dawn looked perfect, as if the crew had simply vanished into thin air. Take us closer, he ordered. Prepare the boarding shuttle. As they moved nearer, Ji-woo suddenly gasped. Captain, look at the hole. Minho looked where Ji-woo was pointing. Along the side of the New Dawn, strange symbols were carved into the metal. They weren't human writing or any alien language Minho recognized. The symbols seemed to glow with a soft, eerie light that pulsed like a heartbeat. I've never seen anything like that, Sora whispered. From the inside, they docked with the New Dawn and prepared to board. Minho, Ji-woo, and Sora put on their spacesuits and checked their weapons. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into the research ship. The silence was overwhelming. Their footsteps echoed in the empty corridors. The ship's computer was still running, displaying normal readings for everything. But where was the crew of 12 people? They searched room by room. A dining hall still had food on the tables, growing cold. Personal belongings were scattered in the crew quarters, as if people had left in the middle of their daily activities. But there were no signs of struggle, no blood, no indication of what had happened. In the ship's laboratory, they found him. Dr. Yoon Hejin was curled in a corner, alive but barely conscious. His eyes were wide with terror, and he kept mumbling the same words over and over. Doctor. Sora rushed to check his condition. He's in shock, but physically unharmed. Minho knelt beside the terrified scientist. Dr. Yoon, what happened here? Where is your crew? Yoon looked at Minho with eyes that had seen something horrible. His voice was barely a whisper. There, coming back, ... the silent death. Humanity's true face. What do you mean? Minho asked. but Yoon just kept repeating the same frightening words. Jiwoo's voice crackled through their communication system. Captain, you need to see this. I'm detecting massive energy signatures approaching our position. Minho ran to the nearest viewport and looked out into space. In the distance, something was moving through the darkness. It was huge, bigger than any ship he had ever seen. It wasn't alone. More shapes were emerging from the deep void, approaching slowly but steadily. Get Dr. Yoon to our ship now, Minho ordered. Whatever's coming, I don't think we want to meet it while we're sitting in a dead research vessel. As they carried the mumbling scientists back to their ship, Minho couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something far more dangerous than a simple rescue mission. The glowing symbols on the hull seemed to pulse faster now, as if responding to the approaching unknown ships. Whatever was coming from the depths of space. Dr. Yoon's terrified words echoed in Minho's mind. They're coming back. But who were they, and what did it have to do with humanity's true face? Dr. Yoon Hajin sat in the medical bay, his hands shaking as he held a cup of hot tea. The warmth seemed to bring some life back to his pale face, but his eyes still held the terror of whatever he had witnessed on the research ship, Captain. Minho pulled up a chair beside the doctor's bed. Dr. Yoon, we need to understand what happened. Your crew is missing, and something big is heading our way. Can you tell us what you discovered? Yoon looked at Minho with tired eyes. We weren't supposed to find it, he whispered. The data vault was buried so deep in that ancient wreckage. We thought it was just another dead alien ship, maybe 1,000 years old. Jiwoo looked up from his computer station. Captain, I've been analyzing the data we recovered from the New Dawn. Some of these files are ... strange. They're written in old human language. But the dates don't make sense. They go back over 5,000 years. It's impossible, Sarah said from her medical station. Humans have only been in space for about 800 years. Dr. Yoon laughed, but it was a bitter sound with no joy in it. That's what we all believed? It's what they wanted us to believe. He set down his tea and looked directly at Minho. Captain, what do you know about your family history? Minho frowned. My family? We've been space traders for generations. My great-grandfather was one of the first human explorers to make contact with alien civilizations. Why? Your great-grandfather? ... double quotes. Ewan paused. What was his name? Lee Taemin. He died in the early contact wars, fighting to protect human colonies from alien attacks. He was considered a hero. Yoon's face went even paler. Show him, he said too. Jiwoo. Show him what we found in the data vault. Jiwoo's fingers moved across his controls, and the room's main screen lit up. Ancient text appeared, along with what looked like military records. The writing was an old human script, but the translation appeared below it. Min-Ho read aloud, General Lee Taemin, commander of the Shadow Fleet. Known across 17 star systems as the Ghost of Andromeda. Enemy casualties, 2.3 million. Planets surrendered without battle, 47. The room fell silent. Minho stared at the screen, unable to believe what he was reading. This... This can't be right. Taemin was a defender, not a conqueror. Keep reading, Yoon said quietly. More. Text appeared on the screen. Military reports. Battle plans. It's something that made Minho's blood run cold. Detailed strategies for psychological warfare that seemed incredibly advanced, even by modern standards. According to these records, Gi-woo said, his voice shaking, humans weren't the peaceful explorers who got attacked. We were... He paused, struggling with the words. We were the most feared species in the galaxy. The screen showed a tactical report that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. It described how General Lee Taemin could predict enemy movements 3 battles ahead, how human forces would appear in places that should have been impossible to reach, and how entire alien fleets would surrender the moment they realized they were facing human ships. But that's not the worst part, Dr. Yoon continued. The records show that humans initially tried to make peace. When we first met alien civilizations, we offered trade, knowledge, friendship, but the aliens saw us as a threat. They formed something called the Great Confederation and decided to eliminate humanity before we could grow stronger. Looked, At the medical readings from the data vault, these records show that the first attack was against a human colony world. Civilians, families, children. The aliens used biological weapons. Minho felt sick, so the war began because they attacked. Us first? Yes, Yoon said. But humanity's response was so swift and so devastating that it terrified every species in the galaxy. Within 6 months, human forces had struck back at 12 alien worlds, not to destroy them, but to send a message. The message was clear. Human ships that could appear and disappear without warning. Ground forces that seemed to know exactly where enemies would be before they got there. Psychological warfare that left enemy soldiers too scared to fight. Your ancestor Yoon, said to Minho, was called the Ghost of Andromeda because no one could predict where he would strike next. Enemy commanders would have nervous breakdowns. Just knowing he was in their sector of space. Gu pulled up another file. Captain, look at this. It's a record of the final battle of the war. The aliens didn't defeat humanity in combat, they did something else. The screen showed a document titled The Great Erasure Protocol. Minho read it with growing horror. The alien species had worked together to not just defeat humanity, but to erase most evidence of human civilization from galactic records. They had rewritten history books, destroyed monuments, and eliminated any trace of humanity's true capabilities. They were so terrified of us, Yoon explained, that they couldn't risk future generations knowing what humans were really capable of. So they changed the story. They made it seem like humans were the victims, the underdogs who barely survived the war. But some humans did survive, Sora said, checking the medical data. The records show that several million humans were forced into exile, pushed beyond the edge of the galaxy into the Void Sector. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. The Void Sector. That's where ships have been disappearing. Now you understand, Dr. Yoon said, his voice filled with dread. The aliens didn't destroy humanity. They just hoped we would die out in the darkness beyond the galaxy. But if humans survived out there for thousands of years, Giwu finished the thought. They've had millennia to adapt, to evolve, to become. Even more dangerous than they were before? The screen showed one final document, a warning written by an alien commander thousands of years ago. It read, "We have made a terrible mistake. We should have destroyed them completely. If they survive in the void and never return, they will be something far worse than what we feared. Future generations must pray that the darkness beyond the galaxy claims them, because if it doesn't, we have created our own nightmare." Minho stared at the approaching energy signatures on their sensors. The unknown ships were getting closer, and now he understood what Dr. Yoon meant when he said they're coming back. Humanity wasn't returning as the peaceful explorers the galaxy remembered. They were returning as the descendants of the most feared warriors in galactic history. Tempered by thousands of years of survival in the harshest environment imaginable, Minho looked at the faces of his crew, then at the approaching ships on the screen. His ancestors' blood ran through his veins, the blood of the ghost of Andromeda. But what kind of ghosts were approaching them now? The darkness of space suddenly came alive with movement. What had seemed like empty void began to shimmer and twist, as if reality itself was bending. Minho watched in amazement as shapes began to emerge from what looked like thin air, Captain Jiwoo whispered, his voice filled with awe and terror. They're not using normal space travel. It's like they're stepping through the fabric of space itself. The first ship to fully materialize was unlike anything Minho had ever seen. It was sleek and curved, but not in the way human ships were designed. This vessel looked alive, as if it had been grown rather than built. Its surface seemed to shift and change, sometimes appearing solid metal, other times looking almost organic, like living tissue. The hull is changing, Sarah reported, staring at her medical scanners in confusion. It's showing signs of biological activity, but also advanced technology. How is that possible? More ships began to phase into reality around them. Each one was different, but they all shared the same unsettling quality of seeming both mechanical and alive. Some had surfaces that pulsed like a heartbeat. Others had what looked like veins running along their hulls, glowing with soft blue light. "I count 27 vessels," Jiwoo said, his fingers dancing across his controls. "No, wait. 31. They keep appearing and disappearing. It's like they're not completely in our dimension." Dr. Yoon, who had been silent since revealing the truth about humanity's past, suddenly spoke up. "They learned to hide between the spaces of reality. 5,000 years in the void, fighting things that exist outside normal space and time. They had to adapt or die." The largest ship, positioned at the center of the formation, suddenly began to glow. A beam of energy reached out, not as a weapon, but as a communication signal. Minho's communication system crackled to life. "Vessel," a voice said, speaking in perfect galactic standard, "we request permission to establish visual communication." Minho looked at his crew. Sora nodded encouragingly, while Jiwoo looked nervous but curious. Dr. Yoon seemed terrified, but he also nodded. "This is Captain Lee Minho of the starship." "Defender," Minho said into his communicator. Permission granted. The main screen flickered, and a figure appeared. Minho's breath caught in his throat. The person on the screen was clearly human, but also something more. Half of her face was covered in cybernetic enhancements that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Her left eye had been replaced with something that glowed with an unnatural blue radiance. Tubes and wires ran along her neck, disappearing into her clothing. But it was her expression that was most unsettling. She looked at them with an intelligence that seemed almost alien, as if she could see through them, understand their thoughts, predict their actions. "I am Commander Han Du-yan," she said, her voice carrying an odd echo, as if she was speaking from very far away. "We are the descendants of those you cast into the dark." The words sent chills through everyone on the bridge, the way she said. You made it clear she was speaking not just to Minho's crew, but to all the species that had exiled humanity. "We have watched from the spaces between worlds," Du-yan continued. "We have seen the galaxy prosper while we struggle to survive. In the void. We have fought battles against horrors that would drive your people insane. We have become something more than what we once were." Minho found his voice. "Commander, we've recently discovered the truth about what happened to humanity. About the exile, about the lies that were told." Du-yan's enhanced eye focused on him with laser intensity. "You know some of the truth, Captain Lee, but you do not yet understand what we have become, what we were forced to become." She gestured, and the screen split to show images from the void beyond the galaxy. Minho saw battles against creatures that defied description, things that seemed to be made of living darkness, entities that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "For 5,000 years, we have been the galaxy's shield," Du-yan said, "fighting the things that lurk in the spaces between stars, keeping the horrors of the deep void from reaching civilized worlds. And all this time we have asked ourselves, should we protect those who cast us out?" The screen showed more images. Human colonies built inside asteroids, cities that existed partially in normal space and partially in other dimensions. Children being born with cybernetic enhancements that allowed them to survive in the harsh void. "We have returned," Du-yan announced. "Not for conquest, but for ... conversation." The way she paused before saying conversation made Minho's blood run cold. It sounded like she was choosing her words very carefully, as if she had other options in mind. Suddenly alarms began blaring throughout the galaxy. Minho's communication system lit up with emergency broadcasts from across known space. The Galactic Council was in emergency session. Military fleets were mobilizing. Entire star systems were going into lockdown. Commander Minho said urgently, "The galaxy is panicking. They're treating your return as an invasion." Du-yan's expression didn't change. We expected this reaction. Fear is the natural response when the exiled return home. She leaned forward, and when she spoke again, words were broadcast not just to Minho's ship, but to every communication system in the galaxy. "To the leaders of the Galactic Council," she said, her voice carrying across 1,000 worlds. "We give you 72 hours to gather your representatives. We will wait at the edge of the void sector. Come to us and we will discuss the future of this galaxy." She paused, and her enhanced eye seemed to glow brighter. "We will wait ... this time. The implication was clear and terrifying.
Now the last time.
Humanity had tried to be patient, to negotiate, to find peaceful solutions. It had led to war. And that was when humans were still completely human. 72 hours, Duion repeated. After that, we will decide the galaxy's future without your input. The communication ended, leaving Minho's bridge in stunned silence. Ground around them. The biomechanical ships continued to phase in and out of reality, a constant reminder that they were dealing with beings who had transcended normal understanding of physics. Captain Jiwoo said, his voice shaking, "I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Every major military force is mobilizing. They're planning to attack the human fleet." Minho realized with growing horror that they were about to witness either the galaxy's salvation or its complete destruction. The descendants of humanity's greatest warriors had returned, enhanced by 5,000 years of evolution and adaptation, and they had given the galaxy 3 days to decide whether to talk or fight. "Get me a direct line to the Galactic Council," Minho ordered. "We're planning to attack those ships. They have no idea what they're walking into." Dr. Yoon looked up from his corner. "Captain, I don't think they're planning to attack. I think they're planning to do something much worse." "What do you mean?" "I think they're planning to test whether humanity is still as dangerous as the old records claim. And if the test fails..." Dr. Yoon's voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. The galaxy was about to discover that some ghosts were better left undisturbed. General Vextar of the Hegemony Warfleet stood on the bridge of his flagship Iron Fist, his 6 arms crossed in determination. His species, the Krathari, had never lost a battle in 300 years. They were the military backbone of the galaxy, feared by pirates and respected by allies. "Those humans think they can threaten us with their ghost ships," Vextar growled. To his officers, "They've been hiding in the void for thousands of years while we've been perfecting the art of war. It's time to remind them why they were exiled in the first place." Despite Captain Minho's desperate attempts to contact the Galactic Council and prevent conflict, Vextar had already made his decision. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1, and the general was confident this would be a quick victory. "Ship's attack formation," Vextar commanded. "Largest human vessel first. It show them the price of threatening civilized space." 200 hegemony warships moved forward, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through asteroid belts and shields that had never been breached. Minho watched in horror from his position between the two fleets. "Commander Duyan, the hegemony forces are preparing to attack. You need to withdraw." Duyan's voice came through the communication system, calm and emotionless. "Captain Minho, please move your vessel to a safe distance. What happens next will be... educational." The first hegemony ship fired, sending a massive plasma beam toward the lead human vessel. The energy bolt was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. But as it approached the biomechanical ship, something impossible happened. The human ship simply wasn't there anymore. "Where did it go?" Vextar shouted, staring at his tactical display in confusion. His answer came from behind him. The human ship had somehow appeared on the other side of his formation, as if it had stepped through space itself. Before the hegemony forces could react, the human vessel fired a single, precise shot that disabled the Iron Fist's main weapons without destroying the ship. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. "No ship can move that fast." But the impossible was just beginning. The human fleet spread out, and suddenly the battle became unlike anything in recorded history. The human ships didn't fight like normal vessels. They fought like living things, like predators hunting prey. Commander Park Sung-jin's fighter squadron appeared out of nowhere, their small ships phasing through the hegemony's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they didn't exist. Moved in perfect coordination, striking at exactly the right moment to cause maximum confusion. "How are they getting through our shields?" A hegemony officer screamed into his communicator. The answer came from Lieutenant Choi Yujin, whose voice was broadcast across all hegemony frequencies. "Your shields protect against energy and matter. They don't protect against ships that exist partially outside your dimension." On the ground combat ships, things were even more terrifying. Hegemony Marines reported that human soldiers would appear from thin air, strike with perfect precision, then vanish before anyone could return fire. It wasn't just cloaking technology. These humans seemed to know exactly where their enemies would be before the enemies knew it themselves. Squad leader to command, a panicked Marine reported, "The humans... They're not just invisible. They're predicting our movements. Every time we plan to move somewhere, they're already waiting for us." But the most unsettling part wasn't the advanced technology. It was the psychological warfare. The human forces seemed to understand the deepest fears of every species. They fought against the Krathri, who prided themselves on their warrior culture, found themselves facing enemies who fought with a cold efficiency that made their own battle rage seem childish. The humans didn't fight with anger or passion. They fought with the calm precision of surgeons, cutting away their enemies' will to fight. The Vorthok, insectoid creatures who relied on hive mind coordination, discovered that the humans could disrupt their mental connections, leaving individual soldiers confused and terrified without their group consciousness. The Zelanti, who used advanced AI to coordinate their battle tactics, watched in horror as their computers were not just hacked, but somehow convinced to work against them. "This isn't possible," Vextar said, watching his tactical display as his forces fell into complete disarray. "No one can fight this many different species simultaneously and know exactly how to counter each one." Commander Duyan's voice filled the hegemony communication channels. "General Vextar, your forces have fought bravely, but you are fighting the descendants of those who survived 5,000 years in the void. We have faced horrors that exist beyond your understanding, have adapted to fight enemies that don't follow the rules of your reality." As if to prove her point, a group of human ships suddenly appeared in the middle of the hegemony formation. It's not from the sides or behind, but literally materializing in the space between enemy vessels. The psychological impact was devastating. "They can appear anywhere," a hegemony captain reported, his voice breaking with fear. "There's nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. They're not just attacking our ships, they're attacking our minds." The battle, if it could even be called a battle, lasted only 4 hours. The hegemony's invincible armada wasn't destroyed, it was completely broken. Ship after ship surrendered, their crews too demoralized to continue fighting. Survivors would later report that the humans seemed to know their thoughts, seemed to strike at exactly the moment when fear was strongest. Some claimed that human soldiers had spoken to them in their native languages, using words that specifically targeted their cultural weaknesses. "We surrender," General Vextar finally announced, his voice filled with defeat. We surrender." The human attacks stopped immediately. The biomechanical ships withdrew to their original positions, as if the entire battle had been nothing more than a training exercise for them. "Your surrender is accepted," Commander Duyan announced. "Your wounded will be treated. You're damaged. Ships will be allowed to withdraw. Consider this a demonstration of what humanity has become." News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The footage was analyzed by military experts who couldn't explain what they had seen. The hegemony, who had never lost a battle, had been defeated so completely that their survivors were speaking of retirement rather than revenge. On his ship, Minho watched the aftermath with growing understanding and fear. They weren't trying to win a battle, he said to his crew. They were sending a message. Dr. Yoon nodded grimly. The message is clear. Humanity didn't just survive in the void. They evolved into something that makes their ancestors look like children playing with toys. The old terror that had once driven humanity into exile was awakening across the galaxy. But this time, that terror was mixed with the horrible realization that the humans returning weren't the same species that had been cast out. They were something far more dangerous, something that had learned to fight enemies beyond imagination. The galaxy now faced a choice: negotiate with these evolved descendants of humanity, or face the consequences of testing them further. After watching the hegemony's complete defeat, most civilizations were beginning to understand that there might not be a third option. 3 days after the hegemony's crushing defeat, Minho received an unexpected message. Commander Dujan's voice came through his personal communicator, calm but carrying an undertone of something that might have been hope. Captain Minho, You are invited aboard our flagship. Come alone, but bring Dr. Yoon if he is willing. It is time you understood who we really are." Minho looked at his crew. Giwoo was worried, constantly checking the sensors, as if the human ships might attack at any moment. Sora was preparing medical supplies, though she wasn't sure what kind. Of injury she might encounter, Dr. Yoon sat quietly in the corner, still haunted by what he had discovered. "I have to go," Minho said. "After what happened to the hegemony, the entire galaxy is terrified. If there's any chance of preventing a war, I need to take it." Dr. Yoon looked up with tired eyes. "I'll come with you, Captain. I need to see this through." The transport to the human flagship was unlike anything Minho had experienced. Instead of a normal shuttle, a biomechanical vessel approached his ship. It seemed to grow from the larger ship's hull, like a living pod being born. When they stepped inside, the walls felt warm and slightly soft. As if they were inside something alive, the journey took only minutes. But Minho felt like he was traveling through space itself. The walls around them became transparent, showing not the normal view of space, but something deeper, glimpses of other dimensions. Other realities that existed between the spaces of normal existence. When they arrived at the flagship, Minho was surprised by what he found. He had expected a cold military vessel filled with weapons and war machines. Instead, the ship felt like a living city. The corridors curved naturally, and soft light came from the walls themselves. Children's laughter echoed from somewhere in the distance. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Wanderer, Commander," Duyan said, meeting them at the docking bay. Up close, her cybernetic enhancements seemed less frightening and more sad, as if they were scars from battles that should never have been fought. She led them through corridors, where they passed families going about their daily lives. Human children played games that involved manipulating small fields of energy with their minds. Adults worked at stations that seemed to respond to their thoughts rather than their touch. "This is not what I expected," Minho admitted. "It's what did you expect?" Dujan asked. "Monsters? War machines? We are still human, Captain. We have simply adapted to survive in places where normal humans could not live." They entered a large chamber with a transparent dome that showed the stars above. But these weren't normal stars, they seemed to shift and dance, showing glimpses of the void beyond the galaxy where impossible things lived. "Sit," Duyan said, gesturing to comfortable chairs that seemed to grow from the floor. "Let me show you what really happened to humanity." The room around them changed, becoming a living display of history. Minho watched as images appeared in the air, showing the early days of human exile. He saw ships full of refugees, including children and elderly people, being forced beyond the edge of the galaxy. "We didn't want to leave," Duyan said, her voice heavy with old pain. "We had families, homes, dreams of exploring the stars together with our alien neighbors. But fear is a powerful thing." The images showed the first years in the void, humans dying from starvation as their food supplies ran out, ships breaking down in the harsh environment between galaxies, children being born in the darkness, never. "Seeing a sun, we had to change or die," Dujan continued.
Ow.
"The void between galaxies isn't empty. It's full of things that exist outside normal reality, things that hunt anything they can find." Minho watched in horror as the images showed battles against creatures that defied description, beings made of living darkness that could tear apart spaceships with their thoughts, entities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, attacking from directions that shouldn't exist. "This is Dr. Kim Jae-hin," Duyan said, introducing a man who looked human, but whose eyes held depths that seemed ancient. "He has spent 3 centuries studying the species that exiled us, trying to understand why they feared us so much." Dr. Kim spoke in a voice that was warm but tired. "I discovered that the galaxy didn't just fear our military abilities. They feared our adaptability. Every other species in the galaxy specialized in one thing. The hegemony were warriors. The Vorthok were builders. The Zelanti were thinkers. But humans could do everything. We could be warriors when we needed to fight, builders when we needed to create, thinkers when we needed to solve problems. And in the void," Dujan added, "we learned to be all of these things at once. and more. She introduced them to Sergeant Major Ominciok, a soldier whose body was more machine than flesh, but whose smile was genuinely human. "I've fought things that would drive normal people insane," he said. "Entities that attack your mind before they attack your body. Creatures that exist in your nightmares and make them real. But we learned to fight back. We learned to be stronger. Then our fears," Minho was beginning to understand. You didn't become monsters. You became what you needed to become to survive. "Exactly," Duyan said. "But the galaxy doesn't see it that way. They see our enhancements, our abilities, our ships that exist partially outside reality, and they think we've become something inhuman." Dr. Yoon spoke for the first time since boarding the ship. "What do you want from us?" "What do you want from the galaxy?" Duane's expression became sad. "We want what we've always wanted. Recognition that we're still part of this galaxy. We want our children to see real suns, to walk on planets with grass and trees. We want to stop fighting cosmic horrors in the void and start building something beautiful again." She turned to Minho, and her cybernetic eye focused on him with sudden intensity. "Captain, there's something you need to know about your ancestor, General Lee Taemin." Minho's heart began to race. "What about him?" "I knew him," Dujan said. "Quietly. I was there during the exile. I was just a child then, but I remember him clearly." The room around them changed again, showing images of the final days before the exile. Minho saw his ancestor not as the feared ghost of Andromeda, but as a man desperately trying to save as many people as possible. "The history books say he died fighting the aliens," Duyan continued. "But that's not what happened. When the exile order was given, many humans wanted to fight back, to make the aliens pay for what they were doing to us. Taemin could have led that fight. With his tactical genius, he might have won." Minho watched as the images showed his ancestor making a different choice. Instead of preparing for war, General Lee Taemin was organizing refugee ships, making sure that children and families had enough supplies for the journey into the void. "He died saving us," Duyan said, her voice filled with respect. "His ship was attacked by alien forces while he was escorting the last group of refugees to safety. He could have escaped, but he stayed behind to make sure the transport ships got away safely." Tears filled Minho's eyes as he watched his ancestor's final battle. Not a battle for conquest or revenge, but a battle to protect innocent people. "He was a hero," Duyan said. "Not because he was a great warrior, but because he chose to save lives instead of taking them. That's the kind of humanity we're fighting to preserve." Minho understood now why he had been chosen for this meeting. His ancestor had died protecting humanity's future. And now Minho had the chance to secure that future through peace instead of war. "The galaxy is scared," Minho said. "After what happened to the hegemony, they think you're planning to conquer everyone." "We're not," Duyan replied. "But we're also not going to hide in the void forever. We want to come home, Captain. That question is whether the galaxy will let us, or if they'll force us to take what should have been ours all along." Minho stood in the communication center of the Eternal Wanderer, looking at the most important broadcast equipment he had ever seen, and the next few minutes would determine whether the galaxy would find peace or fall into a war that could destroy everything. "Are you ready, Captain?" Commander Duyan asked, her cybernetic eye glowing softly in the dim light. Minho nodded, though his hands were shaking. "The entire galaxy will be watching. Every species, every world, every leader who matters." Dr. Yoon stood beside him, holding the data files they had recovered from the research ship. "The truth has been buried for 5,000 years, he said. "It's time people knew what really happened." Jiwoo and Sora watched from Minho's ship via video link. They had insisted on being part of this historic moment, even if they couldn't be there in person. Beginning galaxy-wide broadcast in 3:2. 1. Announced Dr. Kim Jae-hyun from his station. Minho took a deep breath and began to speak. "People of the galaxy, my name is Captain Lee Minho. 3 days ago, you watched the hegemony forces suffer a devastating defeat at the hands of returning human ships. You are afraid. You think humanity has returned as conquerors, as the monsters from your oldest nightmares. The broadcast was being transmitted to every inhabited world, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. Billions of beings were listening to his words. But I am here to tell you the truth that was buried and forgotten, the truth that will change everything you believe about humanity and about yourselves. Minho activated the first set of historical records. Images appeared across the galaxy showing the early days of human space exploration. Not warriors or conquerors, but families, scientists, and dreamers reaching for the stars. 5,000 years ago, when humans first met alien civilizations, we came in peace. We offered friendship, trade, and knowledge. We wanted to be part of the galactic community. The images shifted to show the first alien attacks on human colonies. Children and families fleeing from biological weapons. Entire cities burning as alien fleets bombarded peaceful settlements. But you attacked us first. Not because we had done anything wrong, but because you were afraid of what we might become. We formed the Great Confederation and decided to eliminate humanity before we could grow stronger. Across the galaxy, beings watched in stunned silence as their own history was revealed. Many species had never known the true reason for the ancient war. Humanity fought back, Minho continued, not for conquest, but for survival. Every battle, every victory, every moment of what you called our savagery was a response to your aggression. We defended ourselves, and we were very good at it. The images showed General Lee Taman and other human leaders, but not as monsters. As people protecting their families and their future. When you realized you couldn't defeat us in open battle, you chose something worse than genocide. You chose to erase us from history and force us into exile, hoping we would die in the darkness. Between galaxies. Minho's voice became stronger, filled with the weight of truth. But we didn't die. We survived. We adapted. We became stronger than you ever imagined. Most importantly, we chose not to become the monsters you expected us to be. Commander, Dujan stepped forward, her image now being broadcast across the galaxy. I am Commander Han Dujan of the human fleet. We have the power to conquer this galaxy. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Our abilities are beyond your capabilities. We could take everything you have and remake it in our image. The silence across the galaxy was deafening. Every being watching understood that she was telling the truth. But we won't, Duyan continued, because that's not who we are. That's not who we choose to be. She activated a holographic display showing the proposal they had prepared. Instead, we offer you the New Dawn Accords. We will establish 12 border worlds where we can trade and maintain diplomatic relations. These will be our only permanent settlements in the galaxy. The proposal appeared on screens across civilized space. It was generous, asking for almost nothing compared to what they could take by force. In return, Duyan said, we ask for 3 things. First, acknowledgement that the exile was unjust, and a promise that such fear-driven decisions will never be made again. Second, freedom to travel through galactic space for trade and diplomacy. Third, mutual defense agreements. If the galaxy faces a threat too great to handle alone, we will return to help. Minho took over again. The human fleet will continue to explore beyond the galaxy, protecting you from threats you can't even imagine. They don't want to conquer you. They want to explore the universe and discover new wonders. Dr. Yoon stepped forward with the final revelation. The humans have been your guardians for 5,000 years, fighting cosmic horrors and the void to prevent them from reaching civilized space. They've been protecting the galaxy that exiled them. The broadcast showed images of battles in the deep void. Humans fighting creatures that would drive most beings insane. Standing as a barrier between the galaxy and the unknown terrors of deep space. Across the galaxy, the response was immediate. On world after world, beings began to understand the magnitude of what they were being offered. The species they had feared for millennia was offering protection instead of conquest, trade instead of domination. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Within hours, they had reached a unanimous decision. The New Dawn Accords were accepted. 6 months later, Minho stood on the first human diplomatic station. Watching ships from across the galaxy arrive for trade and cultural exchange, he wore the uniform of the newly created Human Galactic Relations Service, the first of its kind, GU. worked alongside alien technicians, sharing human innovations while learning about alien sciences. Sora ran a medical exchange program, teaching alien doctors about human healing techniques while studying their methods. Dr. Yoon had become the galaxy's leading expert on human history, ensuring that the truth would never be forgotten again. But the most important change was happening in schools across the galaxy. Children were learning a new lesson about humanity. They were taught that humans had survived the impossible and chosen mercy over vengeance. That strength without compassion was worthless. But strength with compassion could change everything. On the day the last human ships prepared to return to deep space exploration, Commander Duyan met with Minho one final time. "Are you sure about this?" Minho asked. "You could stay, build a life here among the stars you once called home." Duyan smiled, and for a moment her cybernetic enhancements seemed less alien, more like badges of honor earned through impossible struggles. "The void is our home now," she said. "But it's good to know that this galaxy is no longer our enemy. When your children's children face threats they cannot handle alone, we will return. Not as the species you feared, but as the guardians you never knew you had." The human ships began to phase out of normal space, disappearing into the dimensions between realities. But this time, they left not as exiles, but as explorers by choice. Minho watched them go, knowing that somewhere in the cosmic dark, humanity was fighting battles to keep the galaxy safe. And across 1,000 worlds, children fell asleep too. Stories not of humanity's terror, but of their sacrifice. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the things you fear most are actually the things that love you enough to protect you, even when you don't deserve it. And in the deep void beyond the stars, human ships continued their eternal watch, standing guard against the unknown so that others could sleep peacefully under distant suns. The war was over. The real guardianship had just begun. Re-Triclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.